Hey everybody, it's Justin with VIP Brigade here in Southwest Missouri. Welcome to my 1981 RadioShack F-100 build. Now, I believe this to be the most comprehensive year-specific RadioShack project to ever exist, at least for a vehicle anyway. This entire idea started off with just a single item, and then it sort of morphed into a major passion project, kind of by accident. And it's all because of that one RadioShack item from 1981. Now, what you're about to see is 6 months of very diligent, patient work, hours of studying, mapping, and planning, and even more time searching daily for some very hard to find items. Now, I had a couple of rules for this project, but the main rule, items could only come from the 1981 catalog to match the year of the truck. If it wasn't specifically in that 1981 catalog, then it wasn't allowed in the build. It made for a challenge, but a rewarding one in the end. I've started this video off with some exterior footage of this low mileage Survivor. It was originally sold by Gorley Ford in the Lincoln, Beloit area of Kansas, and that 45-year-old dealer sticker on the fender is one of my favorite things about this rig. I bought the truck in 2023 from the neighboring town of Concordia, Kansas, which is only about an hour northeast of Lincoln and 30 miles east of Beloit, one of those two towns where it once sat brand new on the lot. Now, I can't find anything online about this dealership, so if anyone has a lead, I'd love to know more. Now, the engine bay in this pickup, it's one of the most original, unmodified, stock engines I've ever seen or encountered for a vehicle of this age and era. Every color-coded rubber hose and plastic vacuum line is intact, is not dry rotted or cracked. The factory R12 AC has not been converted, and it still works like a dream. All the smog and emissions junk, that choke these engines down, it's all still installed. I'm telling you, if this truck came off the line with a valve, a switch, or a solenoid on this 300 inline 6, it's all still there to this day. No deletes whatsoever. I mean, yeah, some of the parts could have been replaced with OEM parts at a dealership years ago, I guess, but either way, besides the usual maintenance stuff, such as, plugs, wires, and filters, and a few V-belts, the only thing I can find that's been replaced is the brake master cylinder, and then I replaced a water pump and an oil pressure sensor. But having said that, I will say this. This truck is my daily driver to work, and it's 7 days a week, and I get 15.5 miles to the gallon every single tank, and that is 100% town mileage up and down these steep Ozark hills. The truck cranks first every time, whether it's 2 degrees outside or 102 degrees. So, listen, I'm not going to try to fix what ain't broke, but for now, let's get to the interior and start showing off all these vintage RadioShack items. This beautiful interior is absolutely bone stock as well. From the vinyl floor up to the roof, every single thing is factory. This truck is a custom, and the buyer didn't spring for much in the way of upgrades, but it does have the working AC, and it has the added cruise control, which also still works perfectly, by the way. Now, the driver's seat is showing some wear now, which you'll see in some shots, but that only happened after I acquired it, sadly. I was around 285 pounds when I bought this truck, but I've since gotten way healthier and lost about 70 pounds. But, by the time I had lost that weight, the damage was already done. I almost bought a new replacement seat cover, but I decided against it, as I love the pattern on this bench seat, and they're only original once. So until it starts getting a hole in it or I start risking foam damage, I'll leave it stock the way it deserves. Here's a peek behind the seat of some items that we'll get to as the video goes on as well. So to get it started, in order with the very first item in this 1981 catalog, the realistic, low-noise blank cassette. Great for making those personalized mixtapes. It's page 40 in the catalog, and I have the 90-minute version, catalog number 44-603. I know there's better quality tapes to be had, but these Type 1s have that slick-looking red J-card that matches my interior. Moving on to the next items, we got a collection here of 10 different stereo cassettes that I handpicked for this truck. It's a mix of variety, but also some rarity and stuff I actually enjoy too. It's page 41 of the catalog, and I've underlined all the tapes that I tracked down on this index page. I'll take you through the list. I've got Top Hits of the 70s, Volume 1 and 3. The stereo demonstration tape. Those are kind of hard to come by. Put the Hammer Down and Keep on Truckin'. There's some really good tunes on those old trucker tapes. And then a series of country pop hits of the 70s. I've got volumes 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. I made sure to find very nice copies cosmetically, although it's obvious upon listening, these tapes weren't high quality releases at all. Still need to have though, and I have listened to them all. Next on the list, we have the 10 cassette carrying case. It's page 43 in the catalog, and it's also the first of many new for 81 items that you'll see in this project along the way. Now, this double door style is way less common than the briefcase style that you'll see, so I purposely sought it out because of that reason. And in the year 1981, you couldn't have a cassette collection and a nice player without having a state-of-the-art tape head demagnetizer. It's page 45 in the catalog and another new for 81 item. And look at the price. $22 was a big deal back in 1981. That's like $80 adjusted for inflation at the time of this video in 2026. Now, some folks swear by these things, others say they're a gimmick, but regardless, I found a pristine example and it still functions as it should. Now, talk about a holy grail for a build like this. It's a brand new, never installed tape deck. It's page 66 in the catalog, and it's yet another new for 81 item. Due to some other things you'll see later in the video, I really only had two choices in this catalog for a tape deck that could be used with this build because they couldn't be high power units. And I personally wanted the better quality tape transport that has the rewind option. Now, this particular deck, it has auto search, which it's awesome for skipping songs or restarting a song that you love. Think CDs, just a little slower. It took months of searching, but I finally found it. And as you saw, it's truly brand new old stock. Now this is it, y'all. This is the very item that started this entire journey. It's page 70 in the catalog, and keeping with the theme, it too is new for 81. Now initially, I had carefully restored a beautiful 1981 Ford cassette deck, and I just wanted more tone control. So that's when I started looking around and I found this 7-band EQ. Well, I was doing some more research on it, and I came across some old catalog shots online of this very model, and I saw that it came out the same year as my truck did. And then that sparked the idea and prompted me to hunt down an official 1981 RadioShack catalog, and I just started digging for any items I could find to put in the truck. Now the Ford deck started giving me problems, and I just decided to go ahead and hunt down a realistic deck from 1981 as well. And this booster is the reason why I mentioned I couldn't use any high-powered version tape decks, because basically all that would do is just end up causing a big distorted mess. You'll see it later in another shot. My truck didn't come factory with a 12-volt cigarette lighter plug, so I added this one. It's page 71 in the catalog, and it too is a new for 81 item. And like so many of the other items that I've tracked down, this one was also brand new in the package. Granted, this particular product is a newer packaging style, but the part and catalog number are the same as the 1981 version, so it was allowed in the build. And as you can see, I wire loom everything and keep things ultra tidy. Next, we got these 6x9 speakers, and they're on page 73 of the catalog. I found a brand new, never used pair online, and they're the Deluxe versions. Catalog number 40-1268. Now, trust me when I tell you, even with the power booster, these are very underwhelming speakers. I can't even imagine the budget versions. Now, just a few years later in the 80s, RadioShack actually started releasing prefabbed boxes for 6x9s, little small boxes. But in 1981, they just didn't exist yet. And my research shows that a lot of guys were already making their own, and they were commonly painted black. So I used a black fabric dye to make these little boxes hopefully be as period correct as possible. You know, I actually found just one of these speaker grills initially, and I fell in love with it, and I had to just go ahead and buy it. It's also on page 73 of the catalog. It's part number 40-1334, and I actually got it from the same guy who I bought the power booster from. But when I bought that one, I had no clue. I had no clue how rare these things are, and that it would take me 65 days of searching forums and auction sites every day, multiple times a day, to finally end up finding a full set for sale so I could have two. But it was still worth the stress searching though. Moving on, we have the stereo selector switch. Now, these were imperative back in the day if you were also using a standalone player like my previously shown tape deck. It's also on page 73 of the catalog, and I gotta say, I really love the way it blends in with the bezel and the dash of this truck. It too was another brand new old stock item that was still in its package. Since we're at the selector switch, I'll go ahead and show you a demonstration of how some of this works. So like I said, you must have that selector switch if you're going to use multiple stereos on the same speaker system. In my case, the stock FM stereo that came with the truck, plus the added tape deck that you saw earlier. Otherwise, you're sending outputs from one to the outputs of another, and basically they compete with each other until one fries the other. I purposely used the stereo demonstration tape here because the songs being played are public domain, so I can show you actual footage of the EQ and the tape deck working with its auto search function without getting copyright strikes. And for me, I also have that power booster, so both stereos are routed to the selector switch, and then the output of the selector switch goes across to the booster, and then from there it just outputs to the speakers. Everything's been installed cleanly and precise, and it can easily be removed for maintenance or repair if need be. Again, lots of patient planning went into this build. Next up, we got one of those removable style mounts for radar detectors or CB radios. It's page 78 in the catalog, and like a lot of my other items, I found this one still sealed as well. Now, my CB radio, you'll see it a little more in depth here in a little bit. It's already mounted, and a radar detector from 1981 is pretty much useless these days as far as functionality, so I just found another use for it. And as you can see, it also serves as a cubby storage, so for now, it's just holding spare fuses until something better may come along. The rubber suction plate was still plush, and it rides perfect on the back of my painted cab wall. Up next, we have a 3-outlet 12-volt ladder plug adapter. It's also on page 78 in this catalog, and as you saw, I just chose to put it in that little cubby hole of the dash bezel. This little adapter, it was new in the package too, and it's a pretty period correct package. You can tell by the RadioShack logo there. I'll give you a demonstration of it here shortly, showing a few items being used with it. Now this little guy is quite the dandy. It's also on page 78 of the catalog, and I'm proud to own this new for 81 item as well and have it with me in my travels. And I challenge anyone to find one of these out in the wild. Goodness gracious, this thing was tough to track down. It cleaned up pretty good for, an item that appears to have been used, but still obviously taken care of. Now continuing on, sitting right next to that air compressor, we got this 12-volt Quartz Halogen spotlight. It's also on page 78 in the catalog. If you hadn't figured out by now, page 78 is where all the items are for your vehicle. There's quite a few products I found from this page, but I'll show you a demo now of how this setup can be handy, especially if it's dark and you're having car troubles. This is where that triple barrel 12-volt accessory plug would really come in handy. See, I'm able to safely power both of these items if the situation arose, and they can reach to any wheel of the truck. And as you can see, both the air compressor and the 12-volt spotlight, they work as intended, and they're a neat little addition to this build. Now this little thing was a heck of a chore to find. Truly, I'm not lying to you. And just like the rest, it's also on page 78 of the catalog. It's an emergency strobe light, and I had to get clever with my search methods to even find this thing. And now check out the description from the online and auction site where I purchased it. It has nothing to do with RadioShack or the RadioShack part number. And I have no idea what B336 has to do with anything. And there's also not enough of the items shown in either of the listing photos for me to have done a reverse image search. And when I got it, it was quite a mess. But there's some pretty neat history though. You can see where the original owner documented with a permanent marker where they, I'm assuming they bought the item or maybe received it as a Christmas gift, looking at the date there. And then the batteries were installed not too long later, but obviously never thought about again. It took me a lot of work to literally drive those swelled up batteries out with a hammer and get this thing cleaned up and working again. But it does just that, and I've included a daytime demonstration of it functioning so as to not blind anybody or potentially trigger seizures or anything like that. And this little guy was an earlier find, probably back about 4 months ago from the time of this video. We're still on page 78 with this one, by the way. It's just a little map light, but it's a new for 81 item, and it lives in that single barrel 12-volt outlet. That's actually the only reason I installed that particular outlet, was to give a permanent home to this little map light. Is it perfect at night, though? If something gets dropped in the floorboards, it's much better than using the cabin light. Going back behind the seat again, we got this little magnet utility light. It's also another new for 81 product, and it's the last item to finish off page 78 of this catalog. It's pretty much there for looks and just to say I have it. I mean, it works, but you ain't gonna see much with it. Now right next to that, sporting its fancy magnetic abilities as well, we got this little hide-a-key. It's on page 80 of the catalog, and they call it a key hideaway. It was also unopened in its original packaging as well. And although it's technically made of metal, once you feel it in your hands, it's easy to tell why it was only 69 cents. I found multiple variations of this key locker with that same catalog number, but I chose to find a brand new one that perfectly matched the model in this catalog picture to keep with that strict theme that I set for myself. Now we come to an item that truly was weeks and weeks of careful research, measuring, and planning. The realistic TRC 410 CB radio. It's on page 108, and it too was a new for 81 RadioShack product. It was also new in 2026 for me. 100% complete, brand new in the box with items still sealed up in the plastic. This was a tricky addition because there were multiple variables here. It needed to be from the 1981 catalog, obviously, but it needed to aesthetically blend with my other underdash items and not look out of place. The ashtray still needed to be functional, but most importantly, the thing needed to fit. Now, this CB add-on was only possible, by the way, because my truck has the 4-speed with overdrive, what they call call S-Rod transmission. The shifter and the boot, it's much further back on the transmission tunnel. Any other transmission option wouldn't leave room to mount any CB at all in this location. But even that also meant I still had to account for shifter clearance through all my gears, whether the ashtray was open or closed. Now, all of these things had to be taken into account. Luckily for me, the catalog gives highly detailed measurements of each CB unit. So I made little demo CBs out of cardboard and spare parts to match the given measurements of the catalog. And well, that TRC 410, it was the overall winner that checked every single box. In fact, it was the only one. So I set out to find a perfect condition model, and then I positioned everything perfectly before drilling those two little bolt holes. And for the purists out there who might be upset with me for, drilling holes in a pristine original truck to mount the CB, it's the only two holes that would be halfway noticeable, and that's if you looked upwards from the floorboard. But if someone was really particular, myself included, and they wanted to revert back to 100% stock, these ashtrays can be had from online auction sites all day long for a quick swap. And speaking of holes in the dash, if you really want to talk about perfect installs, the under dash cassette deck and the power booster were both mounted using pre-existing holes where the plastic dash shell screws into the metal frame behind it. It was one of the coolest coincidences I've ever encountered. Where there's CBs, there's SWR meters, and my SWR meter can be found on page 110 of the 1981 RadioShack catalog. Now, I can't prove if this is new old stock or not, but it was complete in the box and in great working condition. It's permanently coupled and mounted safely to my vinyl dash with that double-sided alien tape. It holds as it needs to, but removes without damage if needed as well. Trust me, I did multiple tests before installing it. Now, back then, this era of vehicles were well known for their alternator whine. That's where RadioShack's noise filters come in. Continuing on page 110, we have part number 270-050, Archer's heavy-duty noise filter kit. I won't lie, these things, they're not miracle workers, okay? But I do have to say, this little thing actually helped, because that power booster of mine, it does exactly what the name suggests. It amplifies whatever comes into it. This little filter was also brand new in the package, and it mounted perfectly to that metal emergency brake bracket there. It can't be easily seen, but it is there, and it's putting in work. Now, CB needs an antenna, and I did sacrifice performance to go ahead and be a completionist. We go to page 113 in the catalog to see option E, catalog number 21-990. The Ford-specific disguise antenna. Now, it wasn't cheap. I had to pay for this thing, but it was still brand new and unopened, so I went ahead and splurged and nabbed it. This antenna has a little box that they label signal splitter. It's basically mimicking shortening or lengthening the antenna to tune your SWR. Now, since this is a pre-tuned disguise antenna with a factory vehicle appearance, the SWR adjustments are made at this little box, and I was able to mount mine where it's completely protected but still accessible from the glove box here. I even used the existing FM antenna hole in the firewall, and I just made a custom rubber grommet to accommodate the larger hole from the larger CB connector. Now, my range is only about 3 miles across these Ozark Mountains, but I'll take it. Granted, old school blade fuses aren't all that hard to remove, but some of us fellas have big old hands and need a little help. Page 117 of the catalog shows us the safety fuse puller. This one didn't take a whole lot of searching to find, and although I can't verify whether or not this exact item actually came from RadioShack, it's definitely 100% the exact same tongs, no doubt. For now, this puller just hangs out in the ashtray because, well, that's where it fits. Getting more into the tool side of things now, we've got these surprisingly heavy-duty Archer crimpers, or wire strippers as I call them. Page 134 in the catalog, and let me tell you, these things, they are legit. Now, a lot of these tools were hit and miss from RadioShack back then, but these are the best pair of wire strippers or crimpers that I own across multiple brands. Okay, I know I have multiple different lights in this truck, but this little guy, it's just cool. It's on page 138 in the catalog, and I will say it took me a while to track this one down because this particular catalog picture makes the thing look blue. But after some more research and checking other years of the RadioShack catalog, I found out that they were indeed chrome. Now, I found this one brand new, but unfortunately, it was the early days of the build, and I threw away the packaging before getting a picture. But either way, it's pristine, and it's cool that it survived, seeing as it's more of a cheap option from back then. I spent a lot of time trying to find the 2-in-1 reversible screwdriver that was offered in this catalog, but then I stumbled across this 8-piece interchangeable set. It's on page 140 of the catalog, and although the incredibly cheap case is riddled with toolbox rash, the set is complete and the screwdrivers are still very nice. And nobody can deny how hard it is to find these little impulse buy, cheap throwaway sets in a complete state. I'm very happy to own it, even if it is less than stellar condition. I'm sure passengers got bored in 1981 as well, right? Well, with no smartphones back then or iPads, hey, they could still play Zing-O. It's on page 150 of the catalog, and it's also a new for 81 item offered by RadioShack. Now this was pre-Game Boy days, and as primitive and simple as it seems now, this was probably a big deal for a lot of folks back then. Now this one wasn't brand new, but as you can see, it's very pristine original condition, still with the box. Even as a somewhat younger generation man, you'll still never convince me that there's not a place in everyone's life for a weather radio. And this particular radio is on page 161 of the catalog, and for whatever reason, it's in my top 5 favorite things of this little build. It's extremely common, and it's so easy to find in abundance anywhere at any time, but I just really love this little radio. I keep it in the map pocket of my door, right next to the emergency strobe light. It works great, and I've already used it multiple times when driving to or from work during a storm. Lastly, we come to the final item of the build, the calculator. This model is listed on page 164 of the catalog, and it was state-of-the-art for the time. These days, we take it for granted that we have a calculator built right into our smartphones in our pocket. But in 1981, this ultra-thin calculator with its small footprint and nice little nifty leather sheath ensured you could do any equation necessary on the go. Now, I will say the build doesn't technically stop there. I also have a sales catalog for my Ford truck, and my copy of the 1981 RadioShack catalog, and of course, my photo album that you see here. Every major project that I do, and there have been a few, I always get a physical photo album made, and I incorporate a parts or product binder from that actual company as the album itself. In this case, I found an old program binder for the TRS-80, which is also in the catalog, affectionately titled Art Gallery, which I felt was the only choice to use as the photo album binder. It too is authentic vintage RadioShack to keep with the theme. This isn't everything, but it is most of the original packaging from all the items that were either new old stock or complete in-box products. It is a wide array of items from a retail giant who truly seemed to have it all. Whether it was labeled realistic, Archer, Micronta, or Tandy, nobody can deny that RadioShack was absolutely fierce back in these times. Many a person grew up and got careers in the tech field or robotics due to the captivating nature of this hands-on store and the products it offered. Me, I'm just a sucker for the old way of life. At the time of this video, I'm approaching 40 years old. I've always had a passion for the days gone by, the music, the lifestyles, the products. I wasn't even alive in 1981, but I feel more at home in that world than I ever have in the 2000s and today. I grew up in an era where internet wasn't widespread yet, but electronics were rapidly catching on. CDs existed, but they were just too expensive at the time, so I've lived my whole life being a cassette tape fanatic. I think that's why this build turned sentimental for me. I pictured a man in 1981 who was on top of the world as a young RadioShack manager who bought a brand new truck that year and decided to fill it up with as much company stuff as he could. Using his employee discount, of course. The heydays represented by the items in this video, they're long gone, but they don't have to be forgotten. I, for one, I think I'll spend the rest of my days doing everything I can to keep those memories of vintage retail and classic automobiles alive. Still kind of maybe secretly wishing I could have had the chance to be that RadioShack manager back in 1981. God bless you all. I truly hope you enjoyed this walk down memory lane. Until next time.